My name is Justin. I have a question a little bit about the compositing of live action and the 3D work. What were you doing it in? And if somebody was a standard 2D animator, 2.5D After Effects kind of thing, what would you look to tell them? Would there be a say, look, you should go down the Mystique way, or to try to blend it together? Does that kind of make sense?
Just about. I didn't quite catch all of it, but I think most of what we were using was Nuke and Maya, and possibly some After Effects. But I'm not quite sure what you mean about sort of which route to go down, but studying kind of 3D visual effects is, I think, it's still relatively young. There are some very good people. We had some very good people working for us, and there are different aspects of it. There's obviously the capturing of the two images on the camera and adding to those in terms of the matte paintings or in terms of extending issues within a particular shot, and then there are the sort of add-ons into the shot, like for example the Fumati itself as a separate entity, and what we're doing with that as a separate entity too. So they have different paths down which they need to travel, and each needs to travel in the same volumetric path as the space which you are actually filling within the shot. So I'm not sure who to suggest in terms of where to go and find out more, but people like the Foundry are writing quite a lot of programs at the moment for it. They're a very good place to start. And likewise, the guys that are working for us on Creeping Zero would be a good place to start, at places like Mobius and things. So does that help answer your question?
Yeah, hello? I ask only because of a project where to commission animation companies, like small 2.5D animation companies, to say, come on board and do a 3D project with us. And they go, oh shit, what happens next? What do I do? And there's a question of, okay, well, you need training in this, this, and this to get to that level. Does that make sense?
I mean, I don't know anybody who's actually doing specific stereo training for visual effects. I think a lot of people are working it out as they're going along. And as I say, I think talking to the Foundry would probably help. The biggest thing and the biggest change that it sort of became a kind of like almost a hallelujah moment for me was to actually suddenly realize that I'm actually working in a volume and understand how that volume actually works. And that took quite a long time to get to. Theoretically, I understood it, but all of a sudden, when you're thinking in it, it's completely different. Things suddenly absolutely make sense. And you realize how far you've got in terms of depth budget. You realize that actually the eye's only got around about 30 meters of stereo, and everything after that is a depth cue to create the illusion of stereo perspective. So then you know how far you've got within the relationship, the size of screen, the size of image, and what you want to try and do with it. That is a fundamental understanding of how to start putting a stereo visual effect together, because that's the point in space where it actually has to work. So until you can actually completely understand how that works, I don't think you'll be a very good compositor or 3D, stereoscopic 3D animator. But then again, I might be entirely wrong.
Any further questions? Yes.
Hello. I just wanted to know why you decided to shoot this film in 3D rather than 2D, and whether you've got any specific ambitions in terms of using 3D as a narrative tool in your film. You're trying to achieve anything specifically with 3D?
Well, the principal reason was that the feature script that was developed actually out of a short story. The feature script lent itself beautifully for 3D, partly because the narrative actually expands into a much wider dimension as the film progresses, but also because it would accentuate the alienness and the alien nature of where you're going. For example, we would explore more of the Fumati world, and everything was slightly different than that. So that would suddenly start opening out. Whereas at the beginning, in the kind of human society, it's tight and constricted and claustrophobic. it would just gradually branch out into a much bigger feel later on in the film. So from a very specific narrative point of view, we wanted to use the idea of stereo. That then presented a number of issues for us in terms of how to portray and what things are like and how to build them in stereo and how to photograph them in stereo. So that then becomes an issue of the sort of technicalities of how to put it together. So that's why we made the short in stereo to start with, was to understand the complexities of what we were actually trying to do for the bigger picture.
I think we've run out of time for now, but I not only want to thank Richard, I actually want to point to a particular word you used, which impressed, which is beauty. I think there's sort of something really beautiful happening here. I'm not sure what it is. Is that fair, or am I just...
I think it's fantastic. It's a wonderful period to be working in the film industry, because it allows the expansion of one's brain practically. You kind of think of how things might work, and it's just so exciting. It's, you know, when you start on a project, there's sort of masses of enthusiasm, and sort of traditionally, the kind of at the end of it, all enthusiasm's dead, and the people who weren't involved were the ones that get rewarded. But this is different. It just feels to me that the whole kind of cynical nature of aspects of the film industry just gets washed away, because it's just such fun. And it's so exciting. There's so much that is actually just think about what you might want to be able to do and then work out how you can do it, because it can actually be done mostly now, and it's just beautiful.
Well, I'm delighted to say that Richard has agreed to be on the panel, which we have a little bit later this afternoon. Meanwhile, again, please join me in thanking him for letting us share the work and share some of the vision.